What if I told you that playing it safe is actually the biggest risk that you can take? See, the truth is, no one has achieved massive success without taking risks. Whether it's investing in yourself, building a business, or making a big life move, this episode will teach you how to take strategic risks without losing everything. If you've ever felt paralyzed by fear, this episode is going to challenge your mindset and help you to take bold action. Let's go ahead and get to it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Success Spectrum podcast. I'm your host, Kadeem McLean, and today we're talking about taking risks, the power of risk taking. And in order to get started, I'd like to talk about why playing it safe is the biggest risk you can actually take. And in reality, we talk about this thing called the comfort zone. I always say it this way: there's the comfort zone, there's the danger zone, which is, your fear of your life and so on. But then there's that growth zone where there's a little bit of fear, but it's not fear of death, for example, right? But in that comfort zone, this is where we live life. And ultimately, it's a dangerous place to live. It is a dangerous place to live because think about it this way. You've heard of CEOs getting let go. You've heard of many people at your job getting let go. And this is the most recent thing that I remember. A CEO from Volkswagen got let go. That was years ago. I know people have gotten let go since, but that's the most recent one that comes up in my mind. But if a CEO of a company can get let go, what does that say for you in your position, right? Because you may not be the CEO. Even if you are the CEO, guess what? You could be let go. The reason I'm saying that is because there's an illusion of safety. People work at a job for many years and think that they're safe. They'll never get let go until one day they get pulled into the office from their manager and say, sorry, we appreciate your service, but you've got to go. We're downsizing, right? We're reorganizing, we're restructuring. And that can happen to anybody. I don't wish it on anybody, but it does happen. So there's an illusion of safety because people think that they are safe at their job when in reality, you're just a number. No matter how safe they make you feel, you are just a number. And you might be an expense on their balance sheet versus an asset because you might be a department that's not bringing in the dollars per se, but you're a department that's required just for the sake of operations. So they see you as an expense, a liability versus an asset. Right? So there's an illusion of safety here that we need to take into consideration. And the whole lesson here with this point is the avoiding taking risks doesn't protect you. It limits you because you thought about leaving that job many times, but you stayed there because it was too risky to leave. And now you're being let go. So was it really the best thing to do, or did it just limit you in your potential? Because if you left years ago, you could be in a completely different situation, a different stature. But you stayed there on that level that you were at, thinking you were safe because you're in your comfort zone. It's something you're used to. But again, that comfort zone is the riskiest place that you can be because you're leaving your job opportunity, control of your life, up to somebody else in that situation. Now, I'm not saying to leave your job for the sake of starting your own thing per se. I'm just saying if there's a thought of I should leave this company because there's more opportunity here or a better opportunity for me here or more fulfillment in this area, then you need to take that into consideration because if the only reason you're staying where you are is because you're used to it, it's comfortable, it's what you're used to, that's a dangerous place to be. You need to leave. You need to go do something else. Go take that risk, take that opportunity because that is where you can actually grow and learn. You've been at the same job for 5 years. You know the job in and out, right? You can stay. It's up to you. But I'm saying if you had thoughts of leaving and you saw other opportunities that more match who you are and what you're looking for, consider taking the risk. And the blueprint we give you today will help you to take that jump. Another reason why that safety zone or that comfort zone is the riskiest place to be is because studies have shown many times people on their deathbed, they don't say, oh, I wish I played it more safe. They regret the things they didn't do more than the things they did. They don't regret the failures per se. They regret, oh, I should have done this. I really should have gone skydiving. I really should have taken that job opportunity, started that business, whatever risk that they didn't take. That's what they are regretting on their deathbed. Don't take it from me. Again, studies have shown this because they don't know what could have been if they took that opportunity. Just like you right now, you don't know where you could be if you take that opportunity, if you take that risk. Not a randomized, blinded risk, but a calculated risk. If you don't take that jump, you never know. But you do know, for the most part, if you will, where you'll be if you stay where you are. But then again, do you really know? Because your company can come to you tomorrow and say, hey, thanks for being a great employee. It's time for you to go. That can happen at any point, unfortunately. Doesn't matter how long you've been at a company. So we really got to take a look at this and realize that there is short-term comfort, which ultimately leads to long-term pain. But then there's short-term risks, which lead to long-term gains. So short-term gains, or rather short-term comfort, leads to long-term pain. Short-term risks lead to long-term gain, right? So you can live life one of two ways. You can live it easy, then have it hard on the back end, or you can live it difficult, hard on the front end, and then have it easy on the back end, or easier, right? Take those risks, take the chance. Some of the risks about myth taking, just to debuff some of these right here for you, taking risks is reckless. It's not. The truth is, calculated risk is not reckless. Blinded risks are, but calculated risks are strategic risks, strategic moves that push you towards success, the success that you desire. Myth 2, you have to be fearless to take risks. No, the truth is, courage is acting in spite of fear. You feel the fear and you do it anyway. That's courage. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to feel the fear, which you're going to feel, and do it anyway. That is courage. You don't have to be fearless. Just have some courage. Myth 3, failure is not a dead end. You cannot be successful without facing some type of failure, facing some type of hard lesson, right? Successful people have all faced these lessons. Billionaires have failed many times over, and there's no way to get there without continually failing, first attempt in learning, and then adjusting and continuing to go. Failure is only a dead end if you make it a dead end. You make it a dead end by quitting. That's when you truly fail. But if you take that lesson, you iterate, you make an adjustment, and you keep going, you will ultimately become successful. How long will it take? I don't know. I can't tell you that. But if you keep going and iterating and keep learning and iterating and learning and going and going and going, you will get there eventually. It's just a matter of time at that point. Do you have a child in your life who loves to color? A niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter, a neighbor? Remember when we grew up, we did A for apple, B for banana, and so on? There's something new in town. It's going to change generations financially. It's called Money Magic, ABC. This is a financial coloring book. They get fun pictures to draw, to color in. But instead of A for apple, we got A for asset. We got B for budget. We got C for crowdfunding. This is going to, while they're enjoying themselves, teach them the financial terms that we didn't know growing up. The financial terms that some of us still don't know. Financial literacy is key and vital. And instead of learning A for apple, learning A for asset at such a young age, it's going to change their financial mindset into the future. They'll be able to start off ahead of the ball, right? Ahead of the game. So go ahead and get yourself a copy and give this gift. Give the gift of financial literacy to your children and the children in your life today. Go ahead and click that link in the description and get yourself a copy. An example of this, some successful people, Jeff Bezos, right? Left a high-paying job to start Amazon. Oprah Winfrey, she left her career, gambled by leaving the traditional media roles. Elon Musk, he took all of his money, all of his investments, and put it into SpaceX and Tesla. These are all people who have taken some serious risks and they made it work for themselves. What's synonymous? What's similar amongst all these people? Well, they took a calculated risk, not a blinded risk. They looked at what was happening, where they could potentially go, and essentially they weighed the pros and cons, right? Worst case scenario, what can I do? Can I go back to this thing? Can I try something else? If I fail in this area, what is the next step? And we're going to talk about some of those things. They had a vision and they backed it up with action, right? They had a plan to back up their vision. I talked out on a previous episode, don't just have the vision. What is the execution strategy behind that vision? Because if you don't have an action plan, that vision is not going to become a reality. It's just a pipe dream at that point. You got to have an action plan behind your vision. And each of these people had that. And lastly, they embraced failure as a stepping stone. Any failures they came across, it wasn't a failure. It was an opportunity to learn and adapt. Learn, iterate, and keep going. That's all it is. Learn, iterate, and keep going. That's all failure is, as long as you don't quit. So how do we really assess risks? How do we know whether or not it's a good risk to take? It's a calculated risk. How do we really check these things out? Well, I'm going to give you the risk-taking framework. And the risk-taking framework, number one, is to assess the worst-case scenario. Sometimes we think in our own minds, we're very imaginative. Some of us think we're not creative, but we're very imaginative. We think the worst case scenario is you're going to be on the street living life, no access to the internet, no food, no shelter, and so on. But in reality, it's nowhere close to that bad. For example, if you leave your job, you start a business, what's the worst case scenario? Figure that out. Write it down. As you're doing this plan, creating this framework for yourself, What is the worst case scenario if you were to leave your job and start a business? Well, worst case scenario is you don't make the amount of money that you want to make, let's say, within a certain time frame. Guess what? Can you go back to that job or a job afterwards? Can you try something different, try something new, get a part-time job while you build up your business? There's other options here. So the worst case scenario isn't as bad as we think it is, right? If the worst case scenario is something that you can go back to or recover from, then the risk is worth considering. Number 2 of our framework is to minimize and mitigate the risk, right? Find ways to minimize the potential downside of this risk that you're taking. And going back to that example of an entrepreneur starting your business, instead of taking the leap from your business, or rather from your job to start that business, you could do them simultaneously until you replace your income or get a decent income from your business. So continue working your job while you build your business part-time, right? And that may be difficult for some people. It might be better for you to take the jump. This is just an example to let you know whether or not it's worth taking that risk, right? So you can minimize the downside by doing something like that in whichever situation you're thinking of, because it might not be entrepreneurship for you, but it might be something else where you can figure out some ways to minimize that risk and increase the potential gain. Number 3, gather information and take action quickly, right? Act quickly. Because once you gather this information, the longer you sit on it, the harder it becomes to take action. So if you get all the information that you need, you can, and avoid analysis paralysis, hence that act quickly part, then you are in a situation that's better for yourself. Avoid that analysis paralysis. Get the information. I'm not saying don't do your information gathering, but get that information and then act quickly. Surround yourself with risk takers. This is another big thing. Entrepreneurs, people in business, people who are investors, surround yourself with people who are comfortable taking a healthy amount of risk. Because generally speaking, people who've been at a job for 10 plus years, they're less likely to take risks, right? Unless they also have something else going on outside of that job. But if they've been at a job for 10 plus years, they're less likely to take risks as opposed to an entrepreneur, an investor, a real estate investor, whatever the case might be. So surround yourself with people who are comfortable taking a healthy amount of risk, because that, you've heard this before. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around. Show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, right? Birds of a feather flock together. All these other sayings, cliche sayings we've heard from back in the day, at the end of the day, it is true. If you surround yourself with a certain amount of or certain type of person, you are likely that next person. Right? We could line you up and you are the average of the 5 people you hang around. So if you surround yourself with risk takers, you're putting yourself in a situation where, you know what? I don't mind taking this risk. And what that's doing, hanging around those people, having those conversations, is allowing you to push to take that bold action. Again, calculated, but bold action. I wrote a book for you, and it's called Wings of Abundance, your strategic guide to uplift and empower you to financial overflow. What this book talks about is, one thing I like to talk about is the financial map. There's 2 points on any map. One is where you are, and the next one is where you want to go. This book, this strategic guide, will help you to determine where you are and where you want to go, and will also help you to bridge the gap. We talk about money mindset. We talk about the application of all the information that you know about finances and all the information that's in this book for you. There's resources in the back of the book. There's bonus information in there. We talk about how to overcome debt, how to build wealth, generational wealth. There's so many different strategies in here that you can utilize for yourself to get you to where you want to be financially. So again, if this is something that sounds interesting to you or anybody you know, because it's written in a language that even teenagers could read it, go ahead and click that link in the description and get yourself a copy. Number 5, take the leap and adjust as you go. Take the leap and adjust as you go. Again, avoid that analysis paralysis. Don't sit there and wait for perfection, because if you take action, there's a chance that things will work out. If you sit there and you don't take action, you are going to stay exactly where you are. And the risk of staying where you are, you might not be there a week from now, because your employer might come to you and say, you know what, John, you know what, Bertha, that's it. You're done. Yes, you've been here for 10 years, but we're downsizing. We're restructuring. But if you take that risk and go to that other opportunity, and to be honest, even if you were to stay there and not get fired, would you be happy? Would you really be happy? Because ultimately, I'd argue that everybody wants to be happy. It's something we all seek, and we all do different things to get that happiness, but that is something we all seek and want for our lives. Are you happy with where you are? And would you be happy being there 5 or 10 years down the road in the exact same position, getting just a little bit more pay, doing more work? Likely not. I'm not going to answer for you, but you probably won't be happy. And if that's the case, You see this other opportunity, this risk that you can take to put you in a better situation where you will be happier, where you will be more fulfilled. Why are you not taking that opportunity, or at least calculating to see if it's a good chance or a good opportunity for you? So take that leap and adjust as you go, right? Don't worry about everything being perfect and all the pros being there with no cons. Look at the pros versus the cons, come up with your calculated analysis with those other 4 points we mentioned, and see if it's worth it for you. Because again, just from point number 1, if you can reverse the change and recover from that worst case scenario, then it's worth taking the risk. Some key takeaways to conclude. Playing it safe is the biggest risk that you can take, because you may not be happy where you are. And if you are currently, will you be happy 5 or 10 years down the road? Who knows? You're probably happy right now because you took a risk. This is something new for you. And ultimately, there's 3 things that motivate us: purpose, mastery, and autonomy. Those are the 3 things that really motivate us as individuals. So if you're not really having any of those 3 things, working towards mastering a skill because you know it all where you currently are, right? You don't have any autonomy. You don't really see the purpose in where you are. If you see an opportunity that you can go after one of these 3 things, then that might be worth it for you, right? Because that's a risk you're going to take. Again, calculate it using our framework we just discussed and see if it's worth it for you. Because playing it safe, staying where you are, you might not be going after any of those 3 things: purpose, mastery, and autonomy. Those might not be available to you where you are. But if you take a step into another opportunity, that might be available for you. And therefore, having those things, you will feel more fulfilled. Number 2, fear of failure is normal, but you should feel the failure and do it anyway. It's not something that should stop you. Feel the fear rather and do it anyway. Fear should not stop you from taking action. And lastly here, success isn't luck. It's smart, strategic risks taken over time. Doesn't have to be huge, but you can take little risks to build that risk muscle and develop it over time. And eventually you'll be able to take those bigger risks as you go. So let me ask you, what's one big risk or one risk in general that you've been avoiding taking that you know you can take to get you to the next level? Drop it in the comments, share it with us so we can start that conversation. And again, if you found this information helpful, you found it useful, you're going to use it yourself, like, subscribe, and share this out with somebody who you know needs to take a risk in their life. Share it out with somebody who you know needs to hear this information. All right, thanks for stopping by. Kadeem here, and I'll see you in the next one.